Tell me when we're ready. No, I'm waiting for him. I'm ready. Okay. All right, welcome back. I hope you all enjoyed a good lunch. And let's begin with a word of prayer. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we come boldly before your throne of grace through Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. He's made the way prepared for us, and he is our everything. Without him, we can do absolutely nothing. But with you, all things are possible. So thank you that what you have begun, you will bring to completion. So we ask that we might sit at your feet, that we might learn, that we might know better how to cooperate with you in this life and in the life to come. We pray in Christ's name. Amen. All right. So it'd help if I put it on the screen. We're going to continue our discussion from last night. And last night, we talked about inflammation and the causes thereof. So in the American society, we enjoy a very rich lifestyle. Now, some of us might be considered poverty in this country, but poverty in this country is rich compared to poverty in any other country. And so we are rich Americans. If we can afford to have a cell phone, we're rich. If we can afford to have a TV, we're rich. If we can afford to have a car, we're rich. If we can have a house that actually has heat, we're rich. You get the idea, right? We are a very prosperous nation. And when individuals are rich, complacency and apostasy are very common. And so we have to be very vigilant to watch what God is telling us and to be alert and to be Daniels in this era that we're living in. And so Daniel was placed in the king's court. You know, back in the day when they took over nations, they took the best of that nation and groomed them for the new nation. In this case, it was Babylon. We don't do that, right? But that's how they did it back in the day. And so the king was giving them the very best treatment, the treatment that they would have been receiving in their own country. To say, actually better than, according to the king, so that they would be happy in their new, and they would serve the king loyally and faithfully and all this. And here is an individual who says, no, thank you. And they're bewildered, like, oh no, you have to eat this. This is the very best. What's the king going to say? You're going to look skinny and be, look horrible. And how can I answer the king? And yet Daniel says, just try it for 10 days. And let's see what happens. And you know the story. What happened? What's that? They were healthier. They were brighter. The King James says fatter. That means healthier. Daniel proposed a test. Yeah, to the man who was in charge of the food.
And when Babylon conquered Jerusalem, it was an extremely long march back to Babylon.
Yes, so Daniel had just marched a long march.
A 10-day test.
Yep.
That he and his boys could eat the food they wanted, and they could be compared with the king, eat the king's food.
Yep, so it was an experiment, the first scientific experiment. And Daniel and his friends recovered much faster than the ones who were eating the king's food. So, they had just come from this long, long trek, right? And so, God is just so good. And I think it bears us repeating that Daniel was more interested in preserving his connection. He did not want the king's food or the king's drink to interfere with his mental capacities. He was more interested in keeping his relationship with God than he was his own life. And so he laid it all out there, right? Interesting that it was over the issue of food. We don't have too many situations in the Bible where people were successful with food. So don't worry if you're not successful with food right now. It's okay, because we all struggle. But Job was. Job says, I esteem the words of his God's mouth more than my necessary food. Job understood that food was involved in this great controversy. And Daniel understood that food was involved in this great controversy. So I have a whole presentation on the great health controversy. And it's real. It's very real. So I'm supposed to be telling you what we talked about last night. Last night, we were looking at what is the bottom underlying cause of disease. And the underlying cause of that is inflammation. And so if you have diabetes, if you have heart disease, if you have cancer, if you have immune conditions, underlying all that is inflammation. And so how can we address inflammation and kick it to the curb? That is our topic for today. And before we get into that, is it true that for every truth of God, the enemy has a counterfeit? It is the truth, right? So we shouldn't be surprised that there is this great health controversy as well, right? If God has a message to share with us, the enemy is going to try to pull us away from that true message. And so, again, we must understand God wants to be the health of our countenance. And if we look at Daniel, again, we see it was an issue over countenance. Their countenance was fairer and fatter than all those who ate the king's portion. So God is in the business of rescuing us from Satan's antics. And so whatever God has, the enemy wants. So I want you to meet Sarah. Sarah is the one in the purple with the necklace on. So she was diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis, hypothyroidism, hypertension, osteoarthritis, cystitis, among other diagnoses. And this picture was when she was 40 years old, and it was taken 7 months before she began God's healing program. And she shared her story on our blog. So I'm going to share part of that with you, and then I'll give you an update that she just shared on our blog like 2 weeks ago, or maybe even last week. Wow. You already see a change there? I was diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis. Medications helped with the swelling in my hands and fingers and knees some, but did not completely control it, nor the fatigue that plagued me. I found myself falling asleep as soon as I sat down after getting home and having to sit down while gardening because I was just worn out. Health-wise, this was not how I expected my early 40s to be. I was diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis. Medications helped with the swelling in my hands and fingers and knees some, but how did I do? Go backwards? Let me go forwards. Okay, so this isn't what her early 40s she expected them to be. At a follow-up with Dr. Charles Mills, rheumatologist, he told me that some patients achieve complete remission through diet changes. I was interested in pursuing that. He referred me to Dana West. Together, Dana and I made an eating plan that was drastically different from how I had been eating. Dana asked me how motivated I was to do this, and I said, pretty motivated. This was an understatement. The fatigue and joint pain had worn on me to the point I was starting to consider a career switch. I did not want to change jobs, but feared I soon wouldn't have a choice. Fear, pain, fatigue were powerful motivators for me to stick with the plan. The first month was very hard. I drastically cut back on meat consumption and cut out dairy completely. I thought about cheese every single day. I struggled with cravings for sugar and junk food, but about 3 weeks into the plan, my swelling all but disappeared. I had focused on the swelling in my hands and knees because that's where the pain was the worst. But I realized I actually had swelling all over from my jaw to my ankles, and it just went away. Cravings or no cravings, that was motivating. The hunger and cravings lessened during the second month and now are completely gone. At the end of the second month, I noticed my energy levels were higher than they had been in years. The only time I can remember having this kind of energy was years ago when I was doing high-intensity strength training and cardio workouts all the time. Back then, when I tried to lose weight, I had to work out hard to drop the pounds. Since starting this plan, I've only walked and gardened, but about 50 pounds have fallen off. And you can see the new Sarah there, Ed, in the picture, as he's already commented regarding. What?
I noticed right away.
There you go. He said he noticed right away. I never dreamed I'd have results like this in a matter of months. I took the stairs at work several times this week. 2 to 3 months ago, that was not an option. The swelling in my knees would have had me clinging to the railing, stepping sideways on each step, and then limping for a few days afterwards when my swelling increased even more. I know this from the few times the elevator was down over the last year. The difference is amazing. A coworker asked if I really thought I could eat mostly plant-based, no meat, no dairy, nothing processed, no refined sugar forever. Yes, I really think I can, because I also have no swelling, no fatigue, and no pain. I have my life back. No pork roast, bowl of queso, or candy bar is worth giving that up. So she is now weaning off her medication. She actually started weaning off her medication a year ago, ended up signing up by recommendation of her doctor for a colonoscopy. And, I just fiddled with that, sorry. She signed up for a colonoscopy. They give you antibiotics during a colonoscopy. Makes sense, something's going up, you need to control infection, etc., right? It wipes out your gut flora, and it's a year getting that back. So that completely set her back for an entire year. So she's now once again starting to wean off her medication. She's off 2 medications, and I think she's got 2 to go till she's off her medication again. So just this last weekend, I attended her wedding, and she wanted both of her parents to walk her down the aisle. So I attended her wedding, and I got a picture, and I would have put it up on the screen and showed it to you. But it's a terrible picture. It doesn't do her or her parents, none of the 3 of them, justice at all. So I can't show it to you. But the good news is her mother has arthritis as well, and she was in the middle of a flare-up. And so Sarah invited her over to her home, and she says, come stay with me 10 days. We'll do Dana's 10-day kickstart cleanse, and that way you'll be able to walk me down the aisle, because she wanted both her parents to walk her down the aisle. And so her mom came. Her mom's not looking back either. Her mom is on it. She's feeling good. She successfully walked her down the aisle. And so this is the power of God's program when we work God's program. So I thought that was a good motivating factor for us to start off with. But before we go any further, because we have just eaten and our bellies are very full and your eyes will probably get very heavy, we need to do a coconut stretch. So this was introduced to the group last night. If you're new joining us, then let's disperse out into the aisles where we can have arm length distance between us. All right, there you go. Good job. All right, here we go. You ready? C, O, C, O, down to your toes. And U, T. We're going to do little circles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're on our next one, so we got to build, right? Backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now big. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Other way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And around. And down. Here we go. 1. And up. 2. And up. 3. And up. 4. And up. 2 more. 5. Up. 1 more. You can do it. 6. Up. Good job. Give yourself a hand. You got water. Grab a little bit of water. You just eaten. We don't want to dilute our juices, but a little bit of water. Now for kicking inflammation to the curb. How can we do that and leave it there? You remember Clark Kent, right? He was the mild-mannered, unassuming reporter who worked for Daily Planet. So for a long time, Lois Lane, his co-worker, thought of him as any other co-worker until she found out what was under that ordinary exterior. What was it? Superman! All right. So we look at fruits, vegetables, beans, and whole grains like Lois looked at Clark before she knew who he really was. These common foods, fruits, vegetables, beans, whole grains, may not look like much to us, but underneath their ordinary exterior, they are kickstart superfoods. They come to our rescue in many ways. Better glucose and blood pressure regulation. Oh, there it is. Better weight management. Reduce constipation, inflammation, and pain. Reduce risk of disease, including autoimmune conditions, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, all the things that we've been talking about. Reduced inflammation and better overall health. Does that sound too good to be true? God has lots of surprises up his sleeves, doesn't he, as we cooperate with him in his saving health plan. So, what are Kickstart superfoods? We're going to ask what, where, when, and how. So Kickstart superfoods are plant foods that contain, what did we learn last night? Water and fiber. And how much water, Marty? At least 60%. That's your fruits and vegetables, your cooked whole grains, legumes, all the things that we've been talking about. So 60% water, and they must also contain fiber. So these two things, Kickstart superfoods all contain. That's what they have in common. What are they again? Water and fiber. Sounds pretty simple and basic, right? So why are they superfoods? because they're naturally loaded with all the buzzword nutrients that you're familiar with. Vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, phytochemicals, progoitrins, bioflavonoids, and of course, fiber. So how do they come to our rescue? Well, these nutrients give a kickstart to renewing our energy, restoring health, and preventing and treating diseases, because they all have the necessary nutrients packed together in just the proper amounts that the body knows just what to do with them and how to utilize them to build up and nourish and repair the system. But wait, that's not all. There's more. The more water and fiber foods contain, the fewer calories that they have. Because how many calories are in water? 0. How many calories are in fiber? 0. Okay, so neither fiber nor water contain any calories, so that makes them naturally low-calorie foods. You might think, but I need to gain weight. The good news is, on this plan, God's plan is perfect for everyone, because those who need to lose weight will lose weight, and those who need to gain weight will gain weight. And my husband and I are the perfect example of both of those. He needed to gain weight, and I needed to lose weight. In fact, at first, when I was first cooking, before we were doing Kickstart Superfoods, I should have him tell the story. I didn't really know what I was doing when I started off in this direction to help him with his allergies, which we talked about last night. And so I gave him a 3,500 calorie diet. And guess who was eating right along with him? So I gained, this is before I knew exactly what I was doing, I gained how much? 10 pounds. And he what? Lost 3. He lost 3. You don't want to do it like that. So, but he's at a healthy weight now, as you can see. He's not a little beanpole anymore. And he almost died from overeating, he says. So, little by little, progress as you know what to do. But anyway, that was a side trip. Where are we supposed to be talking about? We're talking about fiber. Those who need to lose weight will lose weight, and those who need to gain weight will gain weight with Kickstart Superfoods. So we don't need to skimp on portions when we have Kickstart Superfoods filling our plate. But wait, that's not all. There's still more. So fiber naturally in our food sends out a signal to the rest of the body, basically saying, hey, we've got everything under control. Don't send out inflammation. We can contain the toxins, the foreign entities, whatever is needed, because that's exactly what fiber does. It prevents the absorption of toxins into the system. But if we're eating foods that do not contain fiber, then what's going to happen? They're already absorbed into the system, and the whole cascade begins. So, that's not all. There's still even more. High water, high fiber foods tend to be very pretty. We can feast our eyes as well as our mouth. So those who sit down to a pretty meal actually have better digestion. They are in a better mood and enjoy better conversation throughout the meal, just because we feast our eyes as well as our stomach. How many of you like to sit down to a colorful plate? Yeah, we all do, right? We like our food to be pretty, to be appetizing. So, cool beans, right? Well, speaking of beans, beans are the king of fiber. So you might want to introduce your palate gradually, a little at a time, so you're not overwhelmed with flatulence. That's the fancy name for gas. But wait, that's not all. There's still more, even more. Kickstart Superfoods are high in water and fiber. They fill your stomach sooner, so that you feel full and you stay full longer. So if you eat Kickstart Superfoods at the beginning of your meal, they're going to fill you up so that there'll be less room in your stomach for the high-calorie foods that you might be tempted or are craving for those foods. And it's actually going to help lessen those cravings. So Kickstart Superfoods, they are the no hunger between meals, no deprivation, and you will experience reduced cravings because your body is getting nourished. Remember last night we talked about those little hairs in our intestinal tracts. When we eat foods that do not contain fiber, and foods that are high in fat and foods that are high in sugar, those little hairs get matted down and we do not get nourished. So we might be eating good foods, but if those little hairs can't stand up and do their job, then disease is on the way because there's no nourishment for the body. So Kickstart Superfoods are the no-fail, no-stopping game changers when it comes to kickstarting a new you. If you eat lots of Kickstart Superfoods, chances are you won't be able to leap over a building in a single bound, yeah. But you will be lighter on your feet and feel a whole lot better with less inflammation and less pain. So, once Lois learned who Clark really was, it changed her life forever. Now we all know that Superman isn't real, but Kickstart Superfoods are. And once you see them for what they really are, they can change your life forever too. Are you in? Are you ready to take the leap? Or at least, how about a coconut stretch? All right, everyone up? We're going to do part 2 and look at the true foods versus deceptive foods next, but we'll get the blood back to our brain first. Okay, you ready? C-O-C-O. N-U-T. We're to 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Big. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Other way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Good. And balance check. And down. Here we go. 1 and up. 2 and up. 3 and up. 4 and up. 5. 2 more. You almost got it. There you go. 1 more. And that's it. Give yourself a hand. If you got water, grab some water. All right, we ready for the next part? Yeah. All right, so we want to explore how foods masquerade as healthy foods versus real and true healthy foods. So again, we understand, just for review, Kickstart Superfoods, what are they? He got it. Water and fiber. And you want them to have at least 60% water, which may or may not mean much to you, but when you chomp into celery, you know there's water there. When you know. So you want to be like grains. When you cook grains, there's water, right? You've added water to it. Okay, so you get the concept. And this is fiber that is naturally in the food. This is not added fiber. Okay. All right, so what constitutes Kickstart Superfoods? Am I selling a particular product for you to buy from me to keep you trapped for the rest of your life? So what are Kickstart Superfoods? They're all in your local grocery store. Yeah, look at the slide. Fruits, vegetables, beans, and whole grains. Okay, so they're best in their natural state, very close to the way God has given them to us. That doesn't mean we have to eat them raw, but minimal processing, minimal refining, without added sugar and added fat, unless it's whole fats like nuts, seeds, things like that. Olives. We talked about olives a lot at lunch. We had lots of olives at lunch. Marty loves olives. All right, so how do these foods come to our rescue? It's quiz time. It's not up on the screen, sorry. Red beets. Red beets are a kickstart superfood. That's right. Absolutely. So what do they do for us? Reduce inflammation, pain, disease, right? They can help us lose weight, or if we actually need to gain weight, they can help us gain weight. Yeah, good nutrition without the negatives. Marty summed it up for us. All right, so I want to give you a few pointers, because when it comes to fiber, fiber loves water like pigs love mud. So, if you are taking in a lot of fiber, but you're not taking in a lot of water, what's going to happen? Yeah, and you might gain 10 pounds. No, but for sure, it's constipation. It's the right answer. Okay? So, in other words, you need to stay hydrated, which is one of the 10 essentials for health. So does that mean that you just drink, the recommendation for water is more or less 64 ounces, 8 cups of water. So can I just drink 64 ounces all at once, get it done and over, and I'm good? No, that would be a really powerful flush, but it would not actually hydrate the body at all. So in the morning is a great time for a flush. Doesn't have to be 64 ounces, 16 would be good. Okay, so in the morning when you wake up, 16 ounces, and then after that, you're looking at, you might need that much with exercise as well. But if you're just going about your daily routine, 2 to 4 ounces every 30 minutes is one of the best ways to hydrate. 2 to 4 ounces every 30 minutes, except during mealtime hours and sleeping hours, obviously. And if you have trouble with waking at night, you might consider stop drinking a little earlier than that, but that's not scientifically proven. I drink a glass of water before going to bed every single night. And if I do wake up in the middle of the night, what is scientifically proven, if you wake up during the middle of the night, you're dehydrated. And so it's best just to go ahead and drink 2 to 4 ounces and go back to bed. Drain and then drink and go back to bed. All right, so also with fiber, if you have a lot of fiber without a lot of water, you're going to have more flatulence. That's the fancy word for gas. So again, kickstart superfoods are going to be much better tolerated than just consuming lots of fiber and start counting fiber and all this kind of stuff. I think we covered everything there. So, as we mentioned earlier, for every good thing that God has created, the enemy has a counterfeit. So the Bible tells us, be not desirous of his, that's the king's, dainties, for they are what? Deceitful meat. Meat means food. So Proverbs 23:3. So if a man messes with it, then we can be sure that it is not as good as the real deal kickstart superfood. So processed fiber foods, they might appear to be kickstart superfoods, but they really are not. All right, so again, we need fiber and we need water. So fiber bars, breads, pastas, crackers, tortillas, dried cereal, fiber supplements. etc. Are these Kickstart superfoods? What are they missing? They have fiber, but they don't have much water. So some of these foods can be part of a healthy meal, or a healthy diet, I should say, and some are just downright junk, but none of them are your Kickstart partners. All right. What are some foods that sabotage our game? We all have them, don't we? I know what mine are. You probably know what yours are. But let's go through some of these foods so that we can at least be real and address some of the issues. So most of us would refer to these foods as comfort foods. And these are the foods that have the potential of sabotaging our game because we relate to them. These are foods that we deserve, that, I need a special something, and this is what I'm going to revert to. And most of them are either salty or they're sweet, right? And so things like fried foods, processed foods, fats and oils, margarines, butters, mayonnaise, oily salad dressings, etc. These in and of themselves can create inflammation. And then you have your sugary products, your confectionery products, cakes, cookies, pies, etc. These are also very inflammatory, as we discussed last night. So what about refined grains? White flours, white rices, white breads. Is there nutrition in these? There are carbs. So a grain, I don't have this on the screen, but a grain has three parts. You have the germ, which is in the center of the grain, and then around that you have the endosperm, which is where all your starch or your carbohydrate is, and then around that you have the protective covering of fiber, or the bran, okay? So when you eat the whole grain, you're getting the sum of all its parts. You're getting the bran or the fiber, you're getting the endosperm with the macronutrients, the carbohydrate, protein, and fat, and you're also getting the germ. The germ is actually where the oils are. So you're getting the vitamins and the minerals and the phytochemicals and all these things that are going to help our body actually digest and process that food and nourish us. So when we refine a grain, we remove the bran. That's the bitter part, right? So away with that. Don't want it. We also remove the germ. Well, that's where all the nutrition is, right? But the germ, when it isn't protected by the bran, then it goes rancid very fast. Well, go away with that because we need a longer shelf life. So now all we have is the endosperm, which contains the carbohydrate, the protein, and a little bit of fat, okay? But all of those are dependent upon micronutrients in order to be digested. So when they got rid of the stuff that's more bitter, then people started having diseases, and it was very obvious. And so they said, oh, we got to add back in some nutrients. So they added back in 5 synthetic nutrients. Well, when they removed the germ, how many nutrients did they actually get rid of? Who said it? What did you say? 28. Okay, 28. So let's just say over 20 for ease sake. So it was over 20 nutrients that went bye-bye. They added back in 5. Now they call it enriched. If I give you a $20 bill and ask for change and you give me $5 back, am I enriched or am I depleted? I'm depleted, right? I'm $15 depleted, right? So what happens when we don't have those other nutrients present? Well, We only have the white part, the sweet part, and guess what? It's like glue in our intestinal tract, and it mats down those little hairs like glue. So when we eat refined products, we're not only not getting nourished, but what is there is depleting our reserves within our body, because now the body has to pull from its reserves to try to deal with this mass that is void of the nutrition that is necessary for it to be processed. So eating our foods in its natural state, the way it comes from the hand of God, is going, with all of its parts, is going to be better than enriched or refined foods. Okay? Any questions on that? Got it? All right. What about cheese? We all like cheese, right? Cheese is very difficult to digest. How much water does it have? None. How much fiber does it have? None. So for most people, cheese and sugar are the hardest addictions to beat. But where's our hope? Cooperating with God, right? He's our hope. He can help us. If we sincerely want to embrace his health message, he's going to give us the strength necessary to break all the enemy's addictions that he's put on us. There's nothing that the enemy can put on us that God can't take us off. And that's not only a saying for drugs, it's a saying for foods as well, right? So let's talk about sugar. We like sugar, right? Who here hates sugar? Oh man, I don't see any hands. So it's my nemesis as well. So I'm in the boat with you. I understand it. Recently I had a sty in my eye. And styes come and go. No big deal. It's there for a couple days. It hurts a little bit, and then it's gone, right? So let's see, it was October, and I had this sty in my eye, and it was really bothering me. And typical sty, a few days, and then it kind of went away. And then I was like, well, it's not really gone away. I can still see it's red. And then about a month later, it flared back up, and then it's still red. So after the third flare-up, I went to the doctor just to see, okay, what am I really dealing with? Do I really have a sty, or is it something else that I'm dealing with? She assured me it was just a sty. So I said, okay, well. So I went completely off all sugar, like no sugar in the milk, no sugar in the cereal, no sugar, no sugar at all in anything. And it hasn't flared back up, so far so good. That was October, and the last flare was, it wasn't 3 months, it was 2 months that it flared up, 3 times in 2 months. And so now how long has it been? 4 months. So now it's been 4 months. But I can tell it's not really gone. So guess what? I'm doing my best still to stay off sugar. And it's difficult because everything has sugar in it. Just start reading labels. I was talking to my dad, and he says, check out this cereal, it's great. I said, it still has sugar. It might be just a teaspoon, but it still has sugar. And so, we don't have any idea, unless we're reading labels, just how much sugar we are consuming. What is the recommendation just from the American Medical Association? They're not our standard, but what is the recommendation? We could say World Health Organization as well. What is the recommendation for your max sugar intake a day? 2 pounds, Marty says. Any guesses? Take a wild guess.
500 grams.
What is it? 500 grams. Okay? Any other guesses? You can be brave. Just throw it out there. 2 milligrams. All right. Any other guesses? 25 grams. Cha-ching. All right, so it's 24. Yeah, 24. And so what does that equate to? Well, I gave you the equation yesterday. 4 grams is 1 teaspoon. So how many teaspoons is that? 6. Someone did the math. It's 6. Okay? 6 teaspoons of sugar is the max that the AMA recommends. What's that? Teaspoons. Did I say tablespoons?
No, you said I thought you said a table earlier.
Okay, let me correct myself. So Marty's really good on catching my errors. I'm not sure what I say sometimes. The real answer is 6 teaspoons. Whatever I said before, I don't know. But 6 teaspoons is the real answer, okay? If we really want to reverse disease, we might have to do, like with the sty in my eye, no sugar to try to get things under control. All right? Yes?
So when you mean sugar, are we talking about refined sugar? Or
Thank
are we talking
you.
about fructose, glucose, any kind of sugar?
Yes. Yes.
Any kind of sugar.
Any kind of sugar. So refined sugar is the absolute worst. Again, everything has been removed. Where does sugar come from, by the way, that you buy off the grocery shelves? It doesn't. It comes from, who said that? Yeah, beets. It comes from beets. And so the original beet, she already told us, it's great, right? Thank you, Jody. It's great. Very healthy for us. But when it gets down to the sugar, all that's left is carbohydrate. Well, we've already said carbohydrate is dependent on other things to be digested. We didn't actually mention it, but it's dependent on protein. It's also dependent on fat, as well as the micronutrients, the vitamins and minerals and things like this. So sugar is very corrosive to our system. It's very toxic to our system. So that's refined sugar. Well, what about coconut sugar or cane sugar? This is better, right? All right, how many of you have ever eaten cane sugar on the cane? All right, a couple of you. Let's just say a foot of sugar cane. How long is it going to take you to consume a foot of sugar cane? 10 minutes? Ooh, he goes for it. Okay, what about you? He's a slow eater. It'd take a pretty good while.
Yeah, no, I don't think you could even consume cane. I mean, you can suck on it, but that fiber will still stay.
Right, okay. So, all right. So sugar cane is very fibrous. Sugar cane would take you a very long time. To make refined sugar or cane sugar that you buy in the store and spoon out of a bag, how many feet of sugar cane does it take? Oh, by the way, is sugar cane sweet? Sugar cane sweet? Okay. All right. How many feet of sugar cane does it take to make 1 teaspoon of sugar? By my motions, you should have an idea. Okay, 5? Hold it up, Marty. They don't want to guess. 3. 3 feet of sugar cane. Okay? That would take you 30 minutes to eat because you're the fastest. I've never seen anyone consume a foot of sugar cane in 10 minutes, but okay, let's just go with it. 30 minutes. How long does it take you to eat? That's 1 teaspoon of sugar. How long does it take you to eat a meal? 10 minutes. No. Just say it's 30 minutes. How long does it take you to consume 1 teaspoon of sugar? 2 seconds, right? So you see, our food is very deceptive. Our food is very highly processed. What about coconut sugar? Coconut sugar is all the rage right now. Oh, but it's coconut sugar. Well, does that make it good? Is that somehow better?
What form is it when it comes on coconut? Is it a fructose type of sugar or?
No, it would still end up being sucrose by the time it's made into, because that's all that's left. It's glucose plus glucose. So, yeah, it's highly, highly processed down. Now, I will.
How about something that's healthy that is very sweet,
Okay.
like a date
Yeah.
or a fig?
Okay. So if you get that date off the tree, does it contain water? Does it contain fiber? It would be perfect. Now, when we dry it, which is the dates that we get because we don't live in California, it's dried, so it's missing the water content. But dates, if you just grind that up and make that into your sugar, you're still getting the fiber from it, so it's going to definitely be better. It's just dried, so the liquid's gone. That's the only difference. The vitamins, the minerals, everything's still there except the water. So that still would be better. So I bought a cereal. This was some months back, and it says no added sugar on the front. And so, of course, I'm a dietitian going to read the label. What's in it? And it said date powder. I think it said date powder, right? I was like, oh, haha. So I had to buy it, right? I don't have my show and tells here, but
Can you compare fructose to refined sugar for us?
yes, hold on one second. So I bought it. I wanted to see what it tasted like, so I tasted it. And then, what's the difference between date sugar and date powder?
Like ours, my highly ground.
It's marketing. That's the only difference. You know, they use dates and just ground them to powder to sweeten the cereal. Is that a better option than sugar? Yeah, it is a better option. It's not. It's refined.
I was just gonna say, what about honey or like maple syrup that's pure maple syrup?
Okay, good. So let's come back to that. Let's go to this one. What's the difference between fructose and sucrose, which is table sugar? The difference is sucrose is glucose and glucose, and fructose is fructose and glucose. So there's no significant difference. If you use high fructose corn syrup, the brain actually doesn't recognize it as a sweet because it's way too sweet.
But I was thinking in terms of eating a large peach or something like that.
In terms of eating what?
Like a large peach.
A large peach? Oh, so in a piece of fruit, in its totality, the body knows what to do with that. It has all of its parts, right? So it has the fiber, it has the water, it has the vitamins, the minerals, the phytochemicals, antioxidants, etc., right? It has everything needed for the body to actually utilize that. And it's not oxidized. Okay. Your question was maple syrup, honey, things like this. Is honey refined? Honey is refined. It's refined by the bees. Okay? So honey is nectar, right? It's nectar from plants. And so the bees refine it for us. And so it is refined. Does it contain nutrients? It does. It contains nutrients. So it's a better option than just sugar, right? Okay? What about maple syrup? Ever had maple syrup straight? Oh, did you have a question or? Okay. Can I finish this one? I'll come back. Okay, so maple syrup. Who's had syrup straight from the tree? Okay, a few of you. How sweet is it? It's like water, right? A little flavored water. So how many gallons does it take to make maple syrup? As we know it, the pure maple syrup. 50 to 1. 45 and over. Okay? So you get 50 gallons just try to visualize a 50 water jugs up here, okay? You get that much syrup, and then you're going to get a quart of maple syrup from that, okay? So it's still super concentrated. Are there nutrients in it? The nutrients are preserved. They are not cooked out, so it's a better option than honey because it actually has more nutrients than honey. Okay, we'll go one step further. Blackstrap molasses. This is the first press of making sugar from sugar cane, right? That's where all the nutrients from sugar go, is in blackstrap molasses. Blackstrap molasses is actually a very healing food. It's not high water and it's not high fiber, but it has a lot of healing properties to it. And so it could be used as medicine for constipation. It can be used for anemia. It's very good for anemia. And it can be used as a mask and for pulling impurities out of our skin. So blackstrap molasses has a lot of benefits. Do we need to limit the amount of use of it? Yeah, it's still a concentrated food, okay?
And it's along the same lines, we use a lot of jaggery.
A lot of what?
Jaggery.
Jagweed?
Yeah, no, jaggery. Jaggery.
Jaggery. I'm not even familiar with that. What is it?
It's a type of, when you first start boiling sugarcane juice,
Okay.
and the impurities that come out, those are turned into solid. It's almost like fudge consistency,
Oh,
but it's sugar.
okay.
It's a type of sugar. They do that from sugar cane, from palm fruits. So there's palm jaggery, there's sugar cane jaggery, and that's used as a substitute for sugar.
Oh, okay.
Sounds like
So I'll have to look into that. So jaggery is a substance that's from sugarcane or palm, and it's a byproduct of sugar making, just like molasses. Okay. So is it like the second press or something, or?
if molasses were to be, made semi-solid, it would be similar.
Okay. All right. So when we talk about our gut microbiome, sugar feeds bad bacteria, the bacteria that we don't want in our microbiome, right? And it's going to starve out the good bacteria. So again, when we add sugar to our system, then our flora is going to become imbalanced. So remember that disease is the result of the violations of the laws of health. Sickness and disease are an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from a violation of the laws of health. So have you ever considered that what you put in your mouth or into your stomach violates a health law? I see some heads nodding. We're good Adventist, right? For the majority of people, this is a new concept, right? Whatever we eat is broken down into single nutrients to feed or fuel our cells. This is the very building blocks of our bodies. So we think of food in terms of needing to just feed ourselves, right? But it's really our cells that we need to be concerned about. We need our cells to be nourished if we're going to remain healthy. If the cells get sick, we become sick. If the cells get toxic, we become ill, right? And there's a domino effect in this process. So sugar also makes our blood very thick. So we have very small vessels in our ears, very small vessels in our eyes, our fingers, our toes, other places. And so when we eat a lot of sugar, we start losing our hearing. When we eat a lot of sugar, we start losing our eyesight. When we eat a lot of sugar, we don't have as good a feeling in our fingers and our toes. And so our bones also start becoming brittle when we eat a lot of sugar. And so what happens to our brain communication when we eat a lot of sugar? It becomes impaired. It's injured. All right? So remember that we have as many brain cells in our gut as we do in our brain. And so the gut is considered the second brain. And so if the gut is not able to do its job effectively with these little hairs, then it's not going to be able to nourish the brain either, and the brain is going to suffer greatly. Do we have more mental health issues now because society has deemed it okay to call it normal? Or do we have more mental health issues now because our diet is so bad? Or maybe there's a combination between the two as well, but our diet is much worse. Now, they might have been eating meat back on the farms because that's what they raised and things like this. But what was their lifestyle? A very active, hard labor lifestyle. Big difference compared to us Americans who sit to earn money, right? Versus working physically to earn money. And so there's a lot to say about the law of health of movement as well. So this picture is supposed to remind me to talk about Moses and how he could climb mountains. It stumps me every time. Like, what am I supposed to say here? Moses was able to climb mountains. His eyes were not dim. He had all of his strength. And so that can be our goal. We can do that too. And even if you're 60 and above, I'm not there yet, so I picked that number. We can start embracing God's health. It's not too late. We can have good health going forward, and we can get to the end of our lives with the same energy as Moses or Caleb. 80 years old, feeling like he was 40, and as my Uncle Ed was mentioning, able to fight the hardest battles with the youngest of them. That's some good food that God gave them. And again, they were out in the open air, so they had plenty of fresh air. They had work that they had to do to survive. And so their life was very different from the life that we live today. Well, let's talk about oils. So I mentioned we were talking about olives and oil over lunch this afternoon. So the process of extracting oil from nuts or seeds or fruits breaks down the natural equilibrium of the nutrients. And so what happens is we get lots of fat from the oil, but again, fat is dependent upon carbohydrate and protein to be assimilated into the body. It's dependent on the vitamins and minerals. The oil is void of vitamins and minerals except for olive oil that has iron, a little iron in it. The rest of them just have vitamin E, right? There's no other nutrient present there other than the micronutrient fat and the vitamin E, which is fat soluble, and so it's there. So very concentrated foods, a little oil will go a long way. We will be using a little oil in our cooking class tomorrow, but for the most part, we're going to be using whole fats. And when you do use oil, you want to try, if financially possible, to get organic oils, because the pesticides and the chemicals that are used tend to be fat soluble which means they don't go away in fat. That means they actually are drawn to the fat, and so they're concentrated in the fat. And so the more you can do the organic, which is much more expensive, but maybe that would help you use it more sparingly. I don't know. But whenever possible, if you can do organic oils, that's going to be a much better option. So all that being said, we do need fat, right? And so God has given us the fats that we need in the nuts and the seeds and the coconuts and the olives and such. So we need fat. We're not saying go on a fat-free diet at all. And there's much that we could say about fat, but avocados, I don't think I mentioned that, but it's there on the screen. These foods are a gift from God to us. They are what I like to call our staying power. So if we add some nuts, seeds, avocado into our meal, we're going to be it's easier to go the length of time between meals that God has recommended for us, which is 5 hours or even 6 hours. Where if you don't have some fat added to the meal, you might be hungry in a couple hours. Well, that's not a good idea to eat then in a couple hours because you're interrupting digestion. So fat can come in very handy, but get it in its whole form instead of a processed form. What about fried foods? They're tasty, right? But they're very dangerous as well. So when oil is heated to a high temperature, it actually changes its composition, and it not only creates inflammation, but it's also carcinogenic in its transformation. So eating fried foods, you're not getting nourished, you're actually toxifying yourself. So what is a carcinogen? It causes cancer, right? So we know tobacco in all of its forms is a carcinogen. It's a number 1 carcinogen, right? So what else is a number 1 carcinogen according to the World Health and American Cancer Society? Anyone know? Food-wise. Nitrates. Well, so this is what it says. Check out the list. Group 1, carcinogenic to humans. We can look there. Of course, we know alcohol and we know tobacco. What about processed meat? Yeah, processed meats. So there's your nitrates, right? So number 1, carcinogen. And there's no warning label on them. How long did it take for the tobacco industry to have to put a warning label on their products? 50 years. 50 years. So we shouldn't be surprised there isn't a warning label on luncheon meats yet. And hopefully we won't be here in 50 years to wait for that to transpire. But we should know of ourselves, these are not something that is fit for human consumption. So what is considered processed meat? The bacon, the sausage, the luncheon meats, cured meats, jerky, ham, hot dogs, any meat that has been salted, smoked, fermented, cured, or processed in any way. Doesn't matter if it comes from game, beef, fish, poultry, or anything else. It's all the same. And what about number 2 carcinogens? Well, that's the red meat. And that would include the beef, pork, lamb, goat, horse, and these are associated with colorectal cancers. All right, so when it comes to flesh food, all of them are inflammatory. They all increase our risk of disease. So in 2018, lots and lots of information was coming out about meat's adverse health effects. So much so that the medical journal Lancet, which is a very reputable medical journal, in their editorial they wrote, we need to talk about meat because it was everywhere being talked about. And so they discussed the flesh industry and a need to change to a less meat-based diet. This gave fuel to the Heritage Foundation, by the way, Maybe you've heard of Project 2025, and they passed their mark. Obviously, it's Project 2025 is what they wanted to accomplish by the year 2025. They didn't make it, but they're still pressing their agendas to try to establish rules that probably most of us are not going to be comfortable with, and including religious liberty laws. So Americans probably don't want to hear that these are not only not healthy for us, they're also addictive. And so if you are eating meat and you try to cold turkey stop eating flesh food, no matter what the source, you're going to go through withdrawals. You're going to go through the all gone feeling, and just like a smoker or an alcoholic would go through withdrawals as well, just like the sugar addict, by the way, will go through withdrawals. And so it's the hypoxanthine and the endotoxins that create this addiction. And by the way, if you eat meat the way that God gave us, the prescription that God gave us to eat meat, which is no fat and no blood, there's no addiction. Who wants to be addicted to a lump of tofu or a lump of gluten with no flavoring, right? So one, the taste isn't there, but two, the hypoxanthine and the endotoxins have mostly been removed as well. Now you think of the term hypoxanthine. Hypoxanthine. That's probably a word that's never entered your category, right? Entered your vocabulary, right? Maybe it has. Okay, so what does it sound like? It ends in an "een." So what's it sound like? Oh, very good. I haven't had that answer, but that's a very good. So yes, it does have protein. But what about like caffeine, nicotine? It's in the same family as caffeine and nicotine, okay? So now you can understand why it would have an addictive element to it, is because it has this literally addictive substance in it. And so don't feel, if you do try to go cold turkey, don't feel like I can't do this, I can't do it. You're feeling the exact same withdrawals as someone who's going through caffeine withdrawal or alcohol withdrawal or things like this. And you can do it because God will help you. If you choose not to go cold turkey, you can wean off, and then you might not have the headaches or the withdrawal or the all gone feeling. And so that might, for you, be a better option. I'm not telling you what to do. You choose on your own. All right, so the more flesh we consume, the higher our risk of heart disease. The more flesh we consume, as it is in the grocery store, the more heart disease, the more high blood pressure, the higher risk of diabetes, the inflammatory disease, cancer. All these are significantly increased when we have flesh in our diet. And this is because of the saturated fat content, the high sodium, high phosphorus content, low potassium content, which is just the opposite of plant foods. Plant foods are high potassium, meat is low potassium. Okay, and we talked about the others. We're going to skip that. I think I'm going to skip that. Okay, so meat may be tasty, but it comes with a price with every bite. And God has something better for us. He wants to help us prevent disease, and if we have disease, he wants to help us reverse disease. And we're going to do that, one forkful at a time. All right, do we need a break? Marty says yes. You guys can say yes too. All right, let's see. It's 3:15. Our next one is at 4. It's 3:20, I guess. Next one is at 4. Do you want that long of a break? We can do a Jody says no. We can do another coconut, and we can talk about some other items. You want to do that? Okay. Let's do a coconut. Thank you. Good job. She says we're up to 8. You can sit down and sit back up. Okay, you ready? Here we go. C O C O N U T. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Carol, backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Big. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. The other way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And around and down. 1 and up. 2 and up. 3 and up. 4 and up. 5 up. 6. 2 more. Up. 7 up. Last one. You're doing great. There you go. And 8. Give yourself a hand. You got water? Drink a little swig.
You're trying to hurt an 80-year-old man.
Am I going to hurt an 80-year-old man? I'm trying to help you be healthy.
Question online says, please give an example of one day meal plan for breakfast, lunch, dinner on this type of eating plan.
Okay, good. So let's do that as a group. Let's make up a meal for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Let's start with breakfast. We're looking for high fiber, high water content foods. We want to start with living foods, foods that are raw. So what would you have for breakfast? That's living, that's raw. Okay, we're going to have grapefruit for breakfast. Okay, what are we going to have with that grapefruit? Anything? Oh, we're going to have 2. Okay, so this is good. We're going to have grapefruit. For those of you who can't have grapefruit, pick another fruit. And we're going to have blueberries, okay? So let's say that's going to be 50% of our meal, okay? That grapefruit and the blueberries. So now we have half of our meal taken care of. What's going to be the other half of the meal? Oatmeal. He's going to add more fruit. Oatmeal with peaches. Okay. So let's just, for those who aren't super fruity people, we are, but those who aren't fruity people, let's just say oatmeal. You can put what you need to put in with your oatmeal, hopefully not sugar, to make it edible. Maybe you don't even like oatmeal, I don't know, you'd have to pick something else. Okay, so let's say that takes a quarter of the meal. We still have a quarter left. What are we going to add?
Some nuts.
All right, some nuts, some seeds, some flaxseed, chia seed, hemp seed. These are all high in omega-3 fatty acids. And so that's going to be anti-inflammatory. That's going to be very helpful. So out of that meal, we actually have 75% of the meal as kickstart superfoods. The nuts don't qualify because they're missing the water, right? But a quarter cup of nuts in the morning is great because that's going to give you what I was calling hanging power. Just a second, he made a comment. Do you remember what you said? Oh, he forgot.
What else other than oatmeal?
Yeah, right.
Freshly ground flaxseed.
Oh, he was reminding me with the flaxseed, it needs to be freshly ground in order to be absorbed by the body to get the omega-3. And so buy it whole, keep it in the freezer, pull it out of the freezer, grind it like with a coffee grinder or something like that with a blade, not one that comes out a chute, but just a little coffee grinder cup. and that's going to give you the best benefit from that flaxseed. Consume it within the 15 minutes from the time that it's been ground. What about alternatives for oatmeal? So any grain will work. A lot of people I've found who don't like oatmeal, if they can do steel cut oats, it's much more tolerable. But if you don't like steel cut oats, then you could do any other grain. You could do wheat, there's rice, there's quinoa, millet. I like millet. My husband, he's laughing. He hates millet. But okay, so let's talk about bread. So what kind of bread would you eat? Whole grain healthy bread. Okay, so instead of the oatmeal, we're going to have bread, and what are we going to put on the bread? Apple butter. Okay, if you're making it yourself and it doesn't have sugar, great. So yeah, I won't go into all my apple butter escapades, but I love apple butter too. Okay, so you're going to put apple butter on there. What are some other options that's a starting point? What would be the next best step to make it a little healthier after that? What could you put on there? Okay, avocados. That would be nice. By the way, avocados actually are high water content food, even though they are a high fiber, they're high fiber too. Even though they're a high fat content food. There aren't too many fats that are high water content, but avocados are one of those, so they are a kickstart superfood. But because of their fat content, you don't want to eat a whole lot of them if you're trying to lose weight. So avocado on top, that would be very nice. Have you ever heard of sweet potato toast? You just slice the sweet potato and then toast it. You might have to toast it twice in a toaster oven, not a toaster where you drop the toast in. Don't do that. But in a toaster oven, and toast it. And I like sweet potatoes, so that's good to me. But you might not like sweet potatoes. And then you put the...
Sweet potatoes or yams are good anytime.
Okay. He says sweet potatoes and yams are good anytime. So you put the avocado on top of that, and it's very good too. And so then you have high water, high content food for the whole meal, except for the nuts and seeds. So the bread would not be high water, high content food, right? Okay. So that's breakfast. Let's talk about a lunch. What would be a good lunch on this type of a meal plan? Kickstart superfoods, we're looking for high water content, high fiber. What are we going to start off with? Living live food. What are we going to start off with? A good green salad, okay? So most of us like dressing more than we like salad. So we have to be careful with the dressing, right? Not to smother it too much with high fat, high sugar dressing. So consider that. We have in our cookbooks, not high water, high fiber, sorry, low fat, low sugar, no sugar dressings. So if you're at a loss of how to do that, you can check out our books. Meat potatoes, well, the first one is the Start a New You cookbook, and the second one, which actually isn't published yet, but you can get a PDF from us, is The Meat and Potatoes of Plant-Based Cuisine. So it was a fun cookbook to write. So next, beyond the salad, you can do a Chipotle lunch. You could. A veggie bowl Chipotle lunch would be very good. So let's talk about that, and then I'm going to come back. So Chipotle will give you a layer of rice. It'll give you a choice of 2 beans or both. It'll give you roasted vegetables on top of that, and then various toppings of salsa, corn, lettuce. It will give you the option of cheese. And what? And sour cream as well. And guacamole. If you do the veggie bowl, the guacamole is included. So we do that, but we don't do the cheese and we don't do the sour cream. So that that is a very nice option. You are going to get more fat there than if you were going to make it at your home probably, but that would be an option as well. All right, so now we've got our green salad, and then what are we going to add to our green salad? Maybe not into the salad, but to the meal. Okay, so a black bean burger. So you're going to have a bun, okay, and you're going to have a burger, and then you'll have your toppings of various things in there. What else are you going to add? No, so whatever you're going to add to your burger, what other food are we going to add? Oh, right, all that's going to go on the burger. What else beyond the burger and salad are we going to have? Okay, steamed broccoli. Okay, so why I kept pushing was we need at least 50%. If you can't get there, start wherever you need to start. But start with trying to get at least 50% of the plate coming from Kickstart Superfoods. Why is the burger not a Kickstart Superfood? No water, okay? So you can eat a lot of calories. It's bread's concentrated food, right? Burgers are concentrated food. And so they're not going to be as beneficial as the Kickstart Superfoods for fighting inflammation. So a side of vegetable soup, or in place of the burger, vegetable soup? What are you saying? Okay, so his idea is to add soup instead of the broccoli, which either way, if it's vegetable, yeah, broccoli in the soup. Okay, so that gives you an idea. You got a burger, you've got a salad, and you've got the broccoli, or if you so choose, a vegetable soup. Okay, supper. Yes.
So when we say 50% superfood, is that by volume, by calorie count, by weight?
I should bring okay, so let's say we have a plate, right? Draw a circle in your head. You've got a plate. Draw a line down the plate. You got 50%, right? So that would be visual. 50%, your plate is covered with 50% Kickstart Superfoods. We actually take people from, our starting point in our program is 50%, but I have many clients who need to start less than 50%, and that's okay. So wherever that starting point is, that's where we start, and then we move them up. But our goal is to get them to 90% Kickstart Superfoods in order to establish what is the best health that you can have right here, right now, in your current situation. This isn't what's going to be a year from now, but right here, right now, what's the best that you can feel? And when we get to 90% and no caffeine, that's a biggie. Got to get rid of the caffeine to really feel your best. Then it's amazing the results that we find from people who go through our 10-day Kickstart cleanse. That's what we do. Do I have any more examples of what? Syrup. Oh, yes, I do have many more examples. We talked about Johnny last night, and there's many more people who have gone through our program. I mean, it's really just quite amazing to see the transformation. So I don't have, obviously, Sarah is her real name, and Johnny is her real name. They've given me permission. But there's people who come into my program, we'll just say Teresa. Teresa comes into the program, she drinks, she smokes, her life has not been a very pleasant, happy life, and the biggest benefit, she wasn't particularly overweight. You know, she's alcoholic, so they can be overweight, but in this case it was consuming her. And so at that point now it's, cholesterol's high, fatty liver, all this kind of stuff. So she wasn't particularly overweight. But her biggest benefit to the program was the God connection with food. And once she embraced God and that he was her healer and that her past did not have to identify her, she was able to break free from the alcohol and from the cigarettes. And then she was able to break free from the caffeine. And then she was actually able to reduce the inflammation. She has a good working liver to this day and doing great. I don't know, let's see, that was 8 years since sober. So, you know, we have lots of different scenarios. I'll give you one story. Our very first health retreat guest that came to our health retreat in Arkansas, she had MS, and I mean advanced stage MS. She couldn't talk, she couldn't control her limbs, she was bedridden. In the 10 days that she was at my house, she could control her limbs, she could push her foot against my hands, like with force, and she could talk. Her whole complexion just changed, you know, kind of like, you know, his face was fairer and fatter. I mean, that's basically what it was, right? I mean, it was just like, whoa, you know, this is not even the same woman who was rolled in here 10 days ago. It was really, really amazing. We had a gentleman that we were working with, and he came from the hospital to my office, 35% heart function. And he decided to come to our health retreat center. And his goal, day one of the health retreat, we were on both sides of him, walking with him. And he could barely go. In fact, we put a chair between our front door and our laundry room door, which is more or less a straight line. And he would rest at either end of those and then in the middle for walking. His goal was to make it to the mailboxes and back. That's one way is 1.7 miles, so that's 3.4 miles that was his goal. And before he left, he did that twice. Yeah, twice. He could not do a coconut. One coconut he couldn't manage. The day he left, he did 50. I know, right? So, when you work God's program works. Yeah, he was actually there for 3 weeks because he was in such bad shape. But yeah, I mean, the results were absolutely amazing. So the last week he was there, we were more like coaches than we were actively, going through the whole day with him. So he wanted that. He wanted to go out and about and then come back to a safe haven, and go out and about and come back to a safe haven, so he could kind of feel his way, make sure that he could stick to the program. So, yeah. I could tell you many stories, but let's see. I think we still need to do a supper. You got me started on my woohoo stories.
So for the supper, do you have to even have a supper?
No, we actually recommend 2 meals a day. But again, if you're eating throughout the day, that's not the place to start, right? And so if you're eating breakfast, a snack, or maybe breakfast is a snack and then 10 o'clock is a meal or whatever, right? If you're eating constantly throughout the day, just try to get 3 meals and skip the snacks. We'll be talking about that tomorrow. But if you are ready to do 2 meals, then that's very healthy. That's a Bible prescription for us, and it works very well because the last meal doesn't interfere with our sleep, and so we'll actually sleep better if we don't have that evening meal. So, but for those who asked, let's do a supper to make sure that we have that covered.
How long did it take you to transform Sarah from that huge woman you showed us to that slim lady? How long did it take you to help her?
He says, how long did it take to transform Sarah? So let's see. Sarah came to my office first in April 20. How long have I been in Huntsville? 2 years? 3 years? I'm not the best with dates. It's somewhere around there. So that picture was actually taken within the year, because I met her when I was still in Eureka Springs, and that picture was taken when I was still in Eureka Springs. So it was probably within a year. But she was not off her medications at that point. So she was off her hypothyroid medication. We actually diverted that medication altogether. And her blood pressure medication she was off. She was off everything except her autoimmune medications within the year. But the autoimmune, she started to come off of those probably about a year and a half ago. Yeah, it's been about a year and a half ago that she had reduced those. And then she had that episode with the colonoscopy, and everything came back. And so now she's actually weaning off her medications again. So hopefully she'll be completely off her medication soon. We'll see. But I've probably been working, I want to say I've been working with her for about 4 years. It might only be 3. I'm not real sure. But somewhere around there, 3 to 4.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah. So I can go back and look at my blogs, because she wrote that on her blog, and I can tell you exactly. Or I can go to my EHR, and that would tell me too. But yeah. Supper. We're trying to do a supper. We haven't gotten to 4 o'clock, so we're still good. All right, supper. What would be a good thing to have for supper? For supper, we want to start with something live and living, so fresh. But we also want it to be fairly light, because we don't want something to sit on our stomach a lot in the evening. So foods that are wake-up foods that are good to have in the morning are actually protein foods. So if you were to have in the morning, say, beans, beans for breakfast. We have a gentleman on our first program in Arkansas. We had a gentleman come through, and when I said beans for breakfast, smoke came out of his ears. He was just like, what? But the majority of the world eats beans for breakfast, so it's really not that foreign. But having beans for breakfast, that would be good. Any concentrated protein that you desire to have, having it in the morning, it's good. It's going to help actually wake you up. Where if you have it in the evening, you might have trouble sleeping at night. So the American tradition of having a nice big steak in the evening is really backwards from God's ideal for us. So a lighter evening meal. Marty, what do you have for supper every night? Marty does eat 3 meals a day, if he can. He eats popcorn and what? He says a can of peaches or fresh fruit of some sort. So fruit and popcorn is his meal. If you have diabetes, that's not the best combination in the world for you. You do need some balancers in there. So, like a vegetable soup would be appropriate for someone, like, say, who has diabetes or sugar dysregulation of any type. Having a vegetable soup instead might be a better option. Maybe some cornbread, maybe salad, fresh fruit, something like this. What's that sound like? Sound okay? Would you eat something like that? Would the person online eat something like that? That's what we really need to answer, right? Okay. Were there any other questions that I didn't come back to?
Have Rohan show us Sarah again.
Do what?
Have Rohan show us Sarah.
He's in love with Sarah. That's a long way back there. I think I might be able to do it better this way. I need a side-by-side, right? Okay. Here's Sarah. We can sing her song. There's Sarah, 7 months before I met her. And her mother is the one in the middle, by the way, who is now on the program and doing great. She's never been my client. Sarah is her coach, and Sarah's doing a great job. And then here's Sarah a year or so later.
No.
Well, we got her head chopped off. It's not chopped off in my picture, but it is here. But yeah. Yeah. She made a very pretty bride. I didn't tell you, but Johnny, I didn't tell you last night, I don't think, but Johnny was baptized into the Seventh-day Adventist Church within 9 months, I think, 9 months of joining our program. God tells us that our testimony of our health gives credit to our spiritual message as well. So when people find that if they're right on the health message, maybe there's something to their spiritual. Maybe they're right spiritually as well. So it's the entering wedge. It's the right arm of the gospel. Yes?
I have a friend that I go golfing with sometimes,
Okay, he has a friend he goes golfing with.
and he's become a good friend. And sometimes we go eat after we play golf.
Mhm.
And he noticed that I did not eat meat, and so
He's
asked
noticed he doesn't eat meat.
why I didn't eat meat.
He asked why.
And I said, oh boy, here we go. And so I said, there's no cholesterol in vegetables.
He said there's no cholesterol in vegetables.
And he said, I take medicine for cholesterol.
He says, I take medicine for cholesterol. So what do you want? The food or you want the medicine?
He answered his own question.
Right. And so the best way to reduce cholesterol is a cholesterol-free diet, right? And where's cholesterol found? It's found in animal exclusively. There's no cholesterol in plants. Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to ask about the role of stress in,
It's huge. She says, what is the role of stress? And I'm assuming in disease process. It is huge. So one of the 10 essentials of health is our thoughts and our thinking process. That includes how do we deal with stress. God says, cast all your cares upon me. I care for you. If we're taking a huge amount of stress upon ourselves, I'm going to point it straight, we're not trusting God. What if we're in a very stressful situation? Was Job in a very stressful situation? He was in a very stressful situation. Did Job wish he could die? He did wish he could die. Death has got to be better than this stressful situation.
And then to have your friends tell you you're the cause of it.
Yeah, and then his friends increased his stress because he's saying, it's your fault. So this is not part of this program. I have a whole presentation, I have many presentations on stress and on why we get sick and the 3 reasons why we get sick. I'll summarize that presentation in a nutshell, hopefully. So 3 reasons. I put a picture up of my daughter last night. My daughter was born ill, right? She didn't get oxygen as soon as she was born. It took them 3.5 months to diagnose her. But once she was diagnosed, she was on oxygen the rest of her life. My daughter was an amazing daughter, and that's just not a mother talking. You could ask anyone who knew my daughter, and they would tell you the same thing. She accepted what God threw at her. No, I didn't say that right at all. She accepted what had been thrown at her, never questioned it, never complained, and praised God. I mean, out of her young mouth, such profound things were spoken. I love God, or I love everyone because I love God. He's been so good to me. You can't teach a kid to say something like that, right? I mean, that's just, where did that come from? I don't know. She was born the way she was born for the glory of God. And we had the privilege of raising her for 5 1/3 years. And it was an amazing experience. It was tough. It was hard. But one of the reasons why we get sick is for the glory of God. And God has told us things happen to us so that we might be able to help others in that similar situation. So that's one reason that we get sick. Most of us would like to say, oh, I'm in that category. I myself cannot say that I landed at the hospital twice with very serious infections for the glory of God. It was actually quite contrary. I was in the hospital because I wasn't cooperating with God, right? So I was a very poor witness. So I contributed. So one of the reasons why we get sick is for the violation of the laws of health. That was my situation, right? That's why I was getting sick, to the point where I had to be hospitalized. The last reason we get sick is for spiritual reasons. Violation of the 10 Commandments. One of the biggest ones is, thou shalt not have any other gods before me. When we take stress upon ourselves, we think we have to handle it ourselves, right? We put ourselves before God. God can handle our stressful situations as well as he handled Job's situation. And you might not think that God handled Job's situation very good, but we talk about Job to this day. And so God handled the situation. So in the stressful situations, look for God, give it to God repeatedly. God, I continue to take this back. I continue to try to fix it myself. And it's beyond me being able to fix it. I can't fix it. So give me the grace and the strength to withstand through the trial, knowing and trusting that all things that are permitted work together for good to them that are called according to his purpose. Either he is faithful or he's not, right? That's what it comes down to. Either we trust him or we don't. And you know, having a handicapped child, medically challenged child, it was stressful. How well did I do with the stress? I internalized a lot of that stress. Never saw a dentist, never really needed to see a dentist on a regular basis before I had Dawn. Dawn lived 5 1/3 years. By the time Dawn passed away, when I would floss black. But there was no time to go to the dentist. Who would watch Dawn, right? It's stress. That was me internalizing stress. Cavities, well, maybe not eating super well either, because many times we were in the hospital, couldn't get real good food. But probably the majority of that was stress, internal stress. And so I have 4 fillings. No, I have 3 fillings, and I have a root canal. So, you know, never had a cavity before, I may have had a cavity after. That's up for debate. I had one dentist tell me that I had a cavity. And so I decided I was going to fix the cavity. You remember last night I said, whenever I get sick or have anything happen to me, I'm like, yes, let's figure out how to fix it. Because God is our physician. He's going to tell us what to do and how to fix things. So I started doing a regime that was going to build my teeth back. And so I did that regime, and I did it for 6 months. Went back to the doctor, the dentist. He checked my tooth. Everyone else in the office came and checked my tooth. The x-ray couldn't show for some reason that I had a cavity, but they assured me that the cavity was still there. So I had to go get a second opinion. So I think it was a whole year later, wasn't it? Anyway, it was some time past. I finally went to another dentist to find out if I really had a cavity or not. So before I did anything, I said, I just need you to let me know how things go before I tell you my history. So he obliged me. And I said, do I have any cavities? He says, no, you don't have any cavities. I said, are you sure I don't have any cavities? He said, I can assure you you don't have any cavities. Okay, thank you. I have no idea if I really had a cavity or I didn't have a cavity because I don't have the x-rays. One of these days, maybe I'll go down there and find out. But the point is, I've never had a cavity before. Most likely, I probably didn't have a cavity after because they assured me that I still had the cavity, so it makes me doubt, right? We don't get cavities just because our diet is bad. That's part of it. We get cavities because of our whole system breaking down. That's our whole internal system, right? This is where our microflora begins. And so when we are stressed, our whole gut is going to feel it, which is the second brain, right? And so that breaks down. Anyway, that was supposed to be a nutshell. It wasn't a nutshell, but the gist is, it's not always cut and dry, but God is faithful. And he's going to see us through whatever situation he permits us to go through. And we're going to come out on the other side saying, blessed be the name of the Lord, if we allow him to carry those burdens for us. Any other questions I did not address yet? Okay. Did I answer the question well enough for you? You got the gist of what I was trying to say, or whoever asked? Yeah, okay. I'm trying to get back to where I was. It's 4 o'clock. Shall we take, it's almost 4 o'clock. Shall we take a 5-minute break and then start in on the next one? Let's do that so that if you need to use the restroom, you can do that, and then we'll come back and we'll look at